This week in 40K.
Good morning, good evening, happy middle of the night. I don't know, wherever you are. Welcome to This Week in 40K. He is Billy and I am Colin. And we are back again for our upbeat look at the grimdark that is neither grim nor it is dark. It is not dark nor grim. How are you, Billy?
Our look will be neither of those things. Upbeat is going to be a challenge. I, as a patriotic American, stayed up until 2 a.m. watching the U.S. women's national team. Spoiler, it was not a wise decision. So I have 4 hours of sleep.
Did they lose then? Is that because they're not going to lose, right?
It was a draw and we advanced, but it was it was a poor showing.
Okay, fair enough.
You're not.
Well, I stayed up till 1 a.m. Because reasons. Not, I could probably list some reasons that it could be, but it was a number of reasons. So I'm also kind of tired this morning, but it's not going to matter because my love and my deep enjoyment of 40K is going to see me through.
That's fair. And on a 40K front, I've actually played 2 games since last we spoke and I have another one scheduled for tonight. I have become a Dirty Custodes player and I'm kind of loving it.
I like that. I actually have played a number of games in the past week, and it was all basically not S tier. Like I played a game that was Tyranids into Orcs. Wonderfully fun. Very, very entertaining. I played Dark Angels into Custodes. I played Dark Angels into Ultramarines. Like, I've been playing things that are an S tier, and you know what? It's awesome. Yeah. If you remove Towering and and Eldar and Genestealer Cult from the game and just play with your friends, the 10th edition is pretty great. I acknowledge that there's entire people with collections out there that are like, but I'm an Edbeg player. That's not fair. I know. Nor is it if you're a Death Guard player, and I get that that's crappy. For about 75% of the codexes, though, 70%, 65%, something like that, I think they're all fine to play into each other. And I think that that's something that's lost because it's the spirit of the community to focus on outliers, right?
The spirit of the community, and I second everything you said. I played Custodes into Chaos, and they were good, interesting, balanced games that both of us screwed up because we didn't quite understand how our armies played into each other because it was the first time we were playing them. But the thing about the outliers, the reason we focus on them is if you want to beat them, the amount you have to try to skew yourself to do so, and it just has a weird knock-on effect on the rest of it. So, and we're getting to the point now where I think we have more than enough data to not just say this anecdotally, but I'm curious to see how much longer we are made to live in this world.
Yeah, and everybody's saying, oh, well, it's going to be months like they said. No, they said months for the normal release, and we have seen multiple times that they've nerfed out of sequence. And I don't see any reason to believe they're not going to do that now. And as much as I think the Custodes are super strong, I think the Custodes are super strong meta-dependent. What train are you playing on? What are people taking? I think that that's a big deal. Genestealer Cult, for example, is still a massive problem for Custodes. But the reality, okay, is that they're in the just play category. They're a very difficult challenge. Like, I'm not saying that they're always going to be fair and fun, but it's very different from the everything hits everything wounds offensive shooting that Eldar has.
Yeah.
Or the what if 40 dudes came in 3 inches away from you and shot the crap out of you, Genestealer Cult approach.
Right.
So, I do have a couple things I want to talk about here at the top of the show. The first one is, if you're wondering how to support us, you can do that. You can subscribe through YouTube or through Patreon. Either way, it's $10 a month, and you get access to everything we have on YouTube. I'll be completely open. We haven't been putting anything in the secret members-only YouTube thing, but you would have access to it if we were putting things into there. More importantly, you get access to our Discord. and it's a fantastic community. It's been going for, I think, 6 years or 5 years, Billy, something like that. We've got, there's a lot of, at the time that we started our Discord, we were one of the only games in town, and we're not anymore, and that's fine. The way that we're different is that we are very focused on the good human upbeat stuff that the network is all about. If you want a Discord to go to where people are going to help you sincerely and encourage you and talk through whatever topic you want to talk through, whether it's struggles you're having with the game or struggles you're having with other nerdy hobbies, or you're having problems with painting, we're the community that'll help you. And also, you get to talk to us, and we're delightful. Okay, second topic. Charity Hammer.
Can I do one small plug of adding on to that on the Discord?
Yeah, of course.
Many places on the internet are very toxic, and I would say that 40K tends to lean that way. The Discord puts a distinct effort to not being that, and finding the non-toxic places on the internet, the safe pools of clean water to swim in, I think is really important to everyone. This is one of those places. Okay.
So it's not Deka.
It is a decidedly nice, clean pool of water.
Yes, that's exactly right. Charity Hammer, September 14th to September 17th. If you don't know what Charity Hammer is, 30 people come to my house and we play 40K live on stream nonstop for Thursday afternoon to Sunday afternoon, 3 days. It is a fantastic event. We have changed the vibe of it entirely this year. So if you haven't followed Charity Hammer in the past, Charity Hammer is a 100% of the money that we raise at Charity Hammer goes to Child's Play. Child's Play is a charity that focuses on children's hospitals. Do kids have toys? Do they have technology? Do they have people that can teach them how the technology works? What do they have? That's an incredibly sensitive and personal topic to me, and I know it is to a lot of other dads out there, which we'll talk about more on another show. But that's the gist of Charity Hammer, and it has people like, 6, I think, members of Team USA, and it is a profoundly good time. And one of the reasons why is we don't just grab really good 40K players. We do that. It's an incredibly challenging meta. But the other thing that we do, more importantly, the other thing that we do is that you have to be awesome. And I don't mean at 40K. You need to be legitimately a good person to come to Charity Hammer. If you have a reputation of problems, you have to get over those problems and put them behind you for some amount of time before you get to come. It's simply an event of cool people. And in the past, especially last year, we did all of this complicated commentary and all this different stuff, and it got away from the vibe that we want, which is you're part of the sleepover. So what we're going to do this year is we're going to have the players do their own commentary as they're playing so that you can interact with them. There's going to be a stream host on every game, and you'll be able to chat with and talk to the players as they're playing their games. And that's what we did in all the big first years, and we did all commentary last year, and that's going to work out. And then we fixed all the technology problems from last year as well. So this is going to be the best Charity Hammer yet. I'm going to keep you guys updated every week between now and then. We're going to it's just going to be a fantastic time. So I look forward to sharing that with you guys. Hopefully the website will go live in the next week and you guys can take a look there. And I say hopefully it'll go live in the next week because I'm the one that's doing the work. And I have other things I have to do as well. So that's the thing I wanted to share. And with that, let's get into our top story.
Our top story.
Not women's soccer.
Not women's soccer.
Okay.
Especially as a show based in America and how disappointed every patriotic American is in the showing last night.
I mean, I would be if I liked soccer.
It's a fun
sport. I would still like Team USA to win.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
What's
your top story?
Speaking
of Team USA, what's our top story?
Speaking of Team USA, the top story is the WTC lists are live. This touches on the second top story of there was a FAQ last week that dropped 2 days before lists locked for WTC, and I found in going through that while the FAQ didn't change a lot, didn't have many substantive changes, it did fundamentally change a few units, and I found it interesting going through the WTC lists to see who took that FAQ into account and who didn't.
Okay.
I'm primarily speaking to the change in Wraithguard, where they no longer shoot into combat, and so the amount of Eldar lists that decided to spend 380 points on a unit that I now believe is a suboptimal choice, to put delicately, was an interesting exercise. There are,
how many was it? Was it a lot?
It was more than I would have guessed for an event of this caliber. I would have assumed that would be something you would test. In my admittedly very small, low scale, low quality sample size, they are no longer a viable choice. Other people who are better at this game made other decisions than me on that one. And there's a different, for people who haven't spent a lot of time thinking about the difference between a teams event and a solo event, I want to put a caveat. There are important distinctions, especially with how WTC scoring works with differential scoring, where you, again, for people who don't understand, you compare the amount of victory points you have at the end, and you, depending on the delta between you and your opponent, you have a score. So a tie can be a useful thing, much like soccer, versus absolutely blowing people out. So there are reasons to build your armies in different ways. A team's army is part of a larger whole of what that team's roster is trying to achieve. And when you look at teams list, you have to analyze it in that way. That said, in theory, especially when you look at some of the better countries coming, or more established, better pedigreed countries coming, you can get a sense of what they think is and isn't effective. And I thought that was a useful exercise.
Before we go any further, here's what WTC is.
There's the really fundamental piece that I missed.
Yeah, so WTC is the World Team Championship, and what it is that countries send a team of 8 people to do an equivalent team tournament to like the Las Vegas team tournament that we spoke about, or ATC, which was last weekend. Shocker, Art of War won. We'll talk about that here in a minute. So yeah, the WTC is a fantastic thing because it is in Europe once a year, and it's supposed to be the best players from your country go. Team USA is a collection of wonderful people, and that's just really, really great. And some of them are already there. I think it's in 2 weeks, but some of them are already there enjoying Europe, which is great. I know that Tyler Bortel is there. I talked to him last night. So the WTC is an extremely big event. It's for the people that go, like John Lennon. It is the most important event of the year. They rep for it. They practice for it. They did that in silence the past many weeks. They didn't talk about their lists. They didn't share them publicly. So pretty neat thing, and certainly something we're going to cover. I do want to say that I really, really liked Team USA's lists. There were a few things in there where I was like, Sean Naden's playing Tyranids, which I thought was wildly weird, because they've got Lucas on Orcs and I think Shookman on Eldar, and those are the 2 armies I'm aware of Naden playing. So suddenly he's playing Tyranids, which I thought was really weird. And also his Tyranid list has the 2 Carnifexes as an old 1-eye unit, which is like 500 points. I love that unit. It's very fun. That unit skews him pretty hard in what he can be paired into, because there's a lot of armies. We're looking at you, Eldar, who are we're looking at you, and not only are we looking at you, Eldar, we're looking at you, Thousand Suns. Wow. So there's just armies that are like, oh, that 500-point unit died. So anyways, I really love the lists. If you want to look at any of this, it's on BCP. You can the event, all the lists are in there, and should be really, really, really fun to follow that. Yeah. Anything else about lists there?
Just that one of my questions was what people would do with Marines, because when you have 8 factions, it's going to be hard for them to not be there, and it's almost universally Death Watch. There are some variation off that. I believe that Scotland, which I care about because Innes Wilson is a well-known person, is running Dark Angels, there's like one Deathwing Knights unit in just a normal Gladius detachment. That was
Uh-huh.
kind of fun. But Deathwatch seems to be the direction that most countries went with their Marines. Eldar, the breakdown is, did they or did they not realize Wraithguard might have been nerfed into oblivion? The spread in what Tyranids armies people took was interesting. Australia is back on the bug carpet, which I think led to great success for them last year. Basically, every Eldar army has a Wraith Knight in it, which I think is instructive. So yeah, just a lot of
and boring.
Yes, I would say very worthwhile going through. And if you want, if this is your first time going through WTC lists, Team USA, Team Poland might be a country you wouldn't have looked at if you didn't know what you were, if no one had ever told you they should be looked at. Australia and England are very safe places to look for really interesting takes on the meta.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Those are kind of the 4 teams to watch. I think there's a couple others, but those are the 4 teams to watch. We're being asked if WTC will be streamed. It has historically not. However, I have heard rumor that there will be some sort of streaming this year. Yeah. I don't have information on that, but as soon as we do, we'll share it on the show. Yeah. Okay. Should we talk about anything else regarding? I can't talk today. Regarding WTC, should we talk about anything else?
Clearly, you can talk, and you have a delightful, somewhat foreign accent. But no,
I don't know what that was. It was I channeled something there.
It was delightful. We can move to what's new for the 2 other, big-ish news parts of the week.
Yeah. So I don't know what people were expecting, Billy, with the FAQ. Like GW said in a Warhammer community article, we're going to do a thing, and it's not about balance. It's about rules clarification. Mm-hmm. They said that. Yep. And then guess what? It wasn't about balance. It was about rules clarification. It had a little bit. Someone wants me to do that except for the rest of the show. So no, I don't even know what accent it was anymore. It's completely gone. I don't know. I don't even know that I could find it. The FAQ did nerf a few things. Like Billy commented, it did nerf Wraithguard in a really fundamentally important way, frankly. And it did clarify things. Gene Stealer Cult was bringing people on the blip and putting one guy on the blip and then putting 19 guys across the table. That's gone. A bunch of rules have been clarified, but in general, it's not a big change. It's not meant to, I don't think it was ever meant to bring balance to the force. No. What do you think, Billy?
Much like the way Darth Vader did bring balance to the Force, I think so too did this FAQ bring balance to the game. There, again, as you said, few clarifications. Speaking of Gene Stealer Cult, they do apparently get their demo charges back when the units come back.
Which nobody needed.
That was a surprise. But mostly it's just going through and cleaning up some data sheets that had some wonkiness. Like there were a lot of Marines units where if you gave up your chainsword for a special weapon, you then didn't get a close combat weapon. So you just could not, actually by the rules, could not punch in melee, which was something I had spent a lot of time looking through. But it was mostly that sort of thing of stuff that you looked at and you're like, this seems like it's probably a typo. Turns out they were almost all typos. Chaos Rhinos, actually all Rhinos now have firing deck 2. 2 Noise Marine units in Chaos Rhino, kind of spicy. But yes, I actually, so here's how I am maintaining my sanity with GW in this period of time. They're being very clear about what they're going to do, and then they're executing on that in a reasonable timeline. If you just believe them when they say things and set your expectations against that, you're not going to be disappointed vis-a-vis your expectations. Now, your expectations for what the state of the game should be, everyone, parse that how you want to in the first months of a completely new edition where everything was rewritten. But GW has been clear and honest in their communication. I think that is my useful filter.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's fair. And the app is another good example of that. When the app came out, they said, hey, we're going to let you use the Army Maker for a while free. And everybody went, yay. And then at the top of the app, it said, you can use this for a limited time. And then they're like, hey, by the way, at the end of the month, you're going to have to start paying for the app. No! Oh, is it going to be a separate fee? No. No, it's not. It's going to be part of Warhammer Plus, which a whole bunch of you idiots are already doing. Sorry. Let me calm down. You're not idiots. The internet sometimes brings out the worst in people. And that is what's happened.
Yeah.
So what's actually going on here is that it's part of Warhammer Plus, which already has a great deal of value to it, and it adds this in. If you think that that's going to get you all the codexes for free, you are a silly, silly, silly person. Why would they do that? What that would cripple that would be crippling financially. Like they would go from making $40 per person when an army comes out to the $10 a month they're already getting from lots of us. So yeah. That's the other thing that I was struck with on the internet this week.
I would say just a bit of free business advice for GW. Reliable and consistent income streams are things that investors really appreciate, and so a regular subscription that you can show people are subscribed to and paying for is something that will help your stock price more than random influxes of cash due to one-off non-repeatable sales. Give us a subscription service to get all those codices, please. Many of us would pay $15, $20 a month just to get all of them.
I guess because when 10th edition came out, I read, 80% of the game.
Yeah.
I was like, what do Necrons do? What do Genes do? Like, I was just wandering through looking at all the rules, and it's very fun. And it made me feel like I understood 40K better than any previous time where the only way you're reading all the codexes is if you're illegally getting PDFs of them, which I try not to do because that's not what I'm looking for from myself.
Yeah. And the other part of it is the rules are wonderful advertisements for the models you can go buy. There's a reason that I'm a Dirty Custodes player now. Custodes players, you're nice people. I'm just calling myself a Dirty Custodes player, not all Custodes players. But if I had not been able to deep dive into the rules, look at them and be like, oh, this is the only army that actually has melee profiles that make any sense.
Mm-hmm.
I would not have purchased a Custodes army in the last week. But I did because I could see the rules. More free business advice for GW, who's a more successful business than I am.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Should we continue on?
I believe we can and should.
Okay, here we go.
What's winning?
The same things as previous weekends. Thanks for coming to this week at 40K. He's Billy, and I'm no. It's almost that. I'm gonna be straight up with y'all. I do not care for what's going on. That said, 40K, fun. So we're going to talk about it, and we're going to be upbeat about it. But yes, the meta, not an amazing place. That said, there are some tournament finishes that are fun. Not very many of them, but some of them. So, yeah. Hey, guys, you may not know this, but Eldar are good. That may not be a thing you know. And if you want free business advice for GW, now remember, guys, this is coming from someone who, given his, if it's all about his druthers, I will play Eldar.
Yep.
If you give me equally balanced armies, I will pick Eldar and I will play them. And I'm not playing them right now. In fact, I'm going to an RTT in 2 weeks, and I think I'm going to take Dark Angels. And if I lose a game in the RTT because I took Dark Angels, that's fine. But Eldar are too good. And my advice for GW is maybe pick somebody else. Because Eldar have been good to the degree of broken more than any other army in the history of 40K. You could talk to any of the olds. We all know. When I started playing Eldar in 8th edition, there was a huge swath of players that just didn't like me because I played Eldar and for no other reason. Eldar is just a thing that is usually broken. If you want to have an army that's usually broken, collect Eldar. I would like it to stop. I would like to play Eldar. I didn't play them during Hail of Doom either. I did not ever play Hail of Doom to a tournament. Like, I don't just want fast guns, people. Okay. So that's my that's my little bit of a rant. Let's talk about some tournaments. First up is the Northeast Open 2023, which is in England. So not the Northeast of America, you xenophobic people that are focused on yourselves. No, I'm kidding. Totally kidding. It was won by Jon Swallow. He's, of course, one of the main characters from Game of Thrones, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
What's that?
You might be mistaken, but that's okay. We'll forgive you.
Well, he brought Eldari to win the tournament. I like that the name of his list is good with 2 question marks. Yes, is the answer to his question. Autarch Wayleaper, Farseer on foot, and the Incarn. What's interesting here is that he does not have a unit to put with his Farseer. People like myself take the Phoenix gem so that if the Farseer gets indirect fired, you get him for 2 turns because he dies on the first turn and you get him back on the second turn. Right. He's not doing that. He's just saying, if you have indirect fire, you get to kill my Farseer. I'm fine with that, which I think is a certain amount of hubris that I kind of enjoy. He has the undercosted Hornet, the undercosted Shadow Specters, 3 of those. He has some D cannons, which are of course mildly balanced, 2 of them. Then Warp Spiders, and then 2 Wraith Knights. So double Wraith Knight on this one, which makes it really interesting that he's okay with his Farseer dying. That must be because he's decided that even if someone has indirect fire, the Wraith Knights are just going to pick them apart. That's my guess. Okay, next up is Eddie Chatter. By the way, I like that his team is Mind Goblins. I enjoy that. He brought Genestealer Cult, which is an army that is also extremely good. The top of it says, "Filthy, filthy man things. The time has come to celebrate the Great Horned Rat. Throw down the oppressors. Join us. Yes, yes." So I appreciate the fluff on his wildly broken list. I think that's fun. And by the way, I want to be clear. Everyone should take the most broken things they can to tournaments. That's what tournament play is about. Yes. I am not putting down Jon Swallow from Game of Thrones. I am not putting down Eddie Chatter. I've got no joke about him unless he's from Pearl Jam. So I think that it's important to remind people that we play to win on Best in Tabletop.
Yep.
So this is all fine. I'm just saying I'm making jokes because of how imbalanced the meta is, and I'm trying to be funny, which doesn't always work. So he has a Biophagus, a Nexus, 2 Primus, 3 Primuses, and then 2 Saboteurs. He's rocking 3 units of Bomb Acolytes, which I think is a certain amount of hubris that I really enjoy. I used hubris like 3 times so far in the show. Then
it's 2 10s and a 5, because I think that just seems to be what the standard is. Right?
Yeah, it's 2 10s and a 5. Sorry, and then 80 neophytes, which is interesting. I like to take a 10 to put on the home objective, but that's fine. And then 1 unit of Aberrants, not surprisingly, and 2 Ridge Runners. This is basically the meta list. There's very little that's different about this. The only real variety that we see at this point is people have disagreements about exactly which characters, but when I say that, I mean that they're taking 75% the same characters, and the last 25 points are different, or 25% of their characters are different. So congrats to Eddie Chatter for getting 2nd place.
One thing we should mention on GSC and the FAQ is, I know one thing you've said, Colin, a lot of times is that GSC can just decide what their AP on their guns is. My understanding is they can't do that. That's been fixed, and it's just the one.
No, it's not. No, it's just the one from Ridge Runners. Okay. The problem is that there's a number of other ways for them to get AP as well.
Okay.
So it's not at all uncommon for their autoguns to be AP2 or even 3 on the turn the neophytes come in.
Okay.
So, all right. So next up is Joseph Musgrave. I've got no joke about Joseph's name. Autarch Wayleaper, Farseer, Spirit Seer, Incarn. Pretty standard. My guess is they didn't use the FAQ, by the way, just because this tournament, was 2 days after it. He does have a Wraith Knight. He does have 10 Wraith Guard. He has 2 Night Spinners and no Fire Prisms, which I think is really interesting. I think Night Spinners are amazing. They also, if you go first against an army like Custodes, who's got the 3 big bricks, you can kind of say that 1 brick just is never going to get to you. Like, there's a lot of tech there, so that's really great. Swooping Hawks, which we don't see very often, 2 units of Warp Spiders, and then the Wraith Guard and the Wraith Knight. All of those things also good. Congrats, Joseph Musgrave. Normally we do the top 3 or 4. I'm going to do 4 this time because Grey Knights got 4th place.
Yeah.
And on launch weekend, we were all thinking, in my friend group, we were thinking that Grey Knights were going to be solidly like A+ tier. Their mobility tricks of, oh, you shot me, I'm teleporting. Oh, I want to move all these people around to wherever I want them to be. Is really powerful. They also have an army of 2-up saves, and being in cover with a 2-up save is still really good. So I think that I was surprised we haven't seen Grey Knights, but Stefan Robertson, or potentially Stefan Robertson, if he's taken if he's on Family Matters and he's taken the drugs to make him into the cooler version.
Now, that's a great Olds reference.
Thank you. So he's got a Brotherhood champion, a Brotherhood librarian, a Castellan Crow, then a Grandmaster. He's got himself a unit of 5 Terminators, which is interesting, not the 10. 3x10 strikes, 3x5 strike squads. Then he's got a unit of 5 Paladins. Oh, excuse me, that one's 10. Was the other one 10 and I just was wrong? No, 5. Okay. 10 Paladins, 10 Purifiers, and then 2 Extraction squads. Hey, here's a fun tip for everybody. Do you play Imperium? I bet you do, because lots of people do. Have you gone and looked at the allies you can bring into your detachment? You should do that. Mm-hmm. Because Extraction squads are one of the most undercosted things in the entire game. Mm-hmm. It is comical what you get for 35 points. Go take a look. It is downright silly. Very, very good to add to your army. So,
jumping on that point, the more interesting thing, and it's Extraction or Exaction squad. Either way, finding the miniatures for that, not possible online. I've looked. I recommend Necromunda Palatine Enforcers as a very reasonable proxy for it, because no one knows what they actually look like.
Okay. All right. And then 5th place was Lewis Archer. He also had Eldari. He had the same 3 characters as everybody else. He did take Dire Avengers, and I do appreciate that about him. So that's kind of fun. He did not take a Wraith Knight, so good for him. Sadly, he got 5th place. My guess is if I look, he lost to one of the other Eldar players. Or maybe GSC. Could be GSC. All right, everybody. That is what we've got for the Northeast Open. Next up is the Capital Clash Summer 23 GT, which is 66 players in Petawawa, Canada. They did WTC scoring, which is really fun, which means that their top 2 players are both 5-0 and 1, because that's how WT scoring sometimes that's how it do. Mm-hmm. So first up, we have Jason Sparks from Canhammer, and he brought Eldari. As you can tell, the meta is very interesting and varied. Autarch, Wayleaper, Farseer, Skyrunner, Incarn, Hornet, Night Spinner, Shadow Specters, D-Cannon, Warp Spiders, Wraith Knight. Woo! It is interesting that he's not taking Fire Prisms either. Basically, there's a list of a certain number of data sheets that are broken, and Eldar players take some collection of them.
Yes.
Next up is our good friend Scary, Ridvan Martinez. He did not take Drukhari to his tournament. I'm sorry. I can tell you why he didn't take Drukhari. He loves Drukhari, and he usually plays Drukhari through thick and thin. I don't know. He might be prepping for WTC. That wouldn't surprise me. Yeah, I think that it's really interesting that he took Necron. So he's got a Hexmark Destroyer, an Overlord, another Overlord, 2 Technomancers, a Transcendent Catan. I presume this is the Catan that you never kill. A Reanimator unit, 2 Crypto Thrall units, Death Marks, which is interesting. I haven't seen those on the table yet. 2 Doomsday Arcs, really, really fun units, but they're still pretty slot machine-y like they've been in many editions. 2 units of 5 Flayed Ones, who are a really neat thing for their points. The 2 units of the incredibly hard to kill 10-man Lich Guard, and then 2 Ophidian Destroyers and 3 Tomb Blades. Really like the Tomb Blades in this edition as well.
Yeah, so, and I can confirm this is his WTC list.
Okay, great. Next up is Eldari and then Eldari. Let's see. Do we care about Zach Como's Eldari list? Let's look. His list is called I'm the Problem and the Problem is Me.
You get bonus points for that one.
Now we're going to talk about his list. So, Wayleaper, Avatar, Farseer, Solitaire, Incarn. So this guy was like, what if I took 1,000 points of characters? What would that be like? 2 Fire Prisms, 2 Lynxes. Now, when the Forge World rules came out, I looked through and people were talking about different things in there, and like the Wraithseer, who's awful. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, well, Shadow Specters are good, but look at the Lynx. It is really, really neat for 155 points. It advances and shoots its incredibly good gun, which is super comical because it's so fast. Anyways, the Lynx is really great. I love that he had 2 of them. I'm really glad that I'm looking at his list now. 2 Night Spinners, a D Cannon, and a Warp Spider unit. No Wraith, no only 1 D Cannon, no Wraith Knight, no Wraith Guard, only 2 Fire Prisms. I'm giving him the shout out for cool Eldar list for the weekend.
Mm-hmm.
4th place is Eric Marcois, maybe.
I'm going to stay away from pronouncing French. I fail.
Okay. All right. That is not the accent I was doing earlier. Okay, so he has the Death Jester. Everybody's got the Incarn, which I think is fun. Yeah. 3 Hornets for him, D Cannons, Warp Spiders, Wraith Knight. Okay, so I'm not going to spend a ton of time on that. Let's see if there's anything else at the top of the tournament that we want to look at before we wrap it up here. Thousand Suns at 5th place, GSC in 6th place, Deathwatch at 7th place. You mentioned that Deathwatch at WTC. My understanding is that Deathwatch is just the best Marine chapter. I think Oath of Moment twice per turn made everybody think that Marines were going to be this wildly broken thing. And Desolators are. But I've played a lot of Marines now, and I think that they're solidly good. But other than Desolators, I don't know what people are worried about that isn't Deathwatch. So that's basically what's going on. So yeah, Deathwatch, Gene Stealer Cult, Deathwatch, Eldari, Adeptus Custode. So yeah. So that is what I've got for the 2 tournaments I'm going to cover. And now we're going to hand this off to Billy to talk about 3 other tournaments.
And while I'm doing that, Colin, if you want to just browse through ATC and see if there's anything worth talking about there, but I anticipate not.
Well, ATC is a fantastic tournament. It's super duper fun. A ton of people are there. It's like a big party. The people that go to that have been going to it for a long time. It is very difficult to cover from a news point of view because it is a team tournament and you don't really know what people were planning or how they were pairing. So you can look at the list, but you don't really know how they all fit together. I will say that the tournament was won by our friends at Art of War. The trio that's won a number of years in a row of John Lennon, Nick Nadavati, and Richard Sigler was joined by Quentin, whose name I can't remember right now. I'm sorry, Quentin. Quentin Johnson? Okay. Yeah. And so Quentin, and then also Jack Harpster, who of course wins everything. So they took 5 ridiculously good 40K players and then beat everyone. That's fine. That's the spirit of a team tournament. What it looked like in the picture, though, is it might have been a golden ticket event.
Yeah, they were all flashy.
So the fact that the 5 of them have found a way to just all go get their golden tickets at the same time is hysterical. I didn't realize that. So anyways, ATC is a fantastic tournament. You can see all the lists online, but that's what we're going to cover about it for today. Off to you, Billy.
Fair and good. We got the North and South GT in Hobart, Australia. I have a pig who might step on a power cord. Fortunately, I'm on a laptop, so that won't hopefully mess anything up. But if I go away, it's because Lilu is exploring. North and South GT, Hobart, Australia, 60 players, 5 rounds. Won not by Eldari. It was won by Tyler Walsh with Necrons. Hexmark, Overlord, Warden, 2 Technomancers, 20 and 10 of Warriors, Ghost Arc, a Reanimator, 2 3s of Scarabs, 2 2s of Crypto Thralls, 3 Doomsday Arcs, 3 individual Locust Heavies, and 10 Lich Guard. For those who have not played Necrons yet or learned about them, the Crypto Thralls are particularly annoying because they're characters that go in. They're models that go in units that are not characters, so you can assign damage to them first, as opposed to characters who you can't assign damage to first within units, and they have a 4-up Feel No Pain, and they can keep coming back, and when you put them in a Lich Guard unit where they're -1 to be wounded, and have a 4-up Feel No Pain and keep coming back. That's the sauce in Necrons right now, is just how many times am I going to have to kill these same Crypto Thralls? So just a thing to look for when you're looking at a Necron list for the first time is how many Crypto Thralls, where are they going? This one probably had the second set in the 20 Warriors brick. So that was Tyler Walsh's winning list. Next, we have Shannon Butters. If Colin can come up with the South Park joke more quickly than I can, I will cede it to him there. Wayleaper, Farseer, Incarn.
Not too easy.
Too easy? Fair enough. Wayleaper, Farseer, Incarn, 3 Fire Prisms, a Night Spinner, 2 5s of Shadow Specters, 2 Warwalkers, 5 Spiders, and a Wraith Knight. Colin and I were talking this past weekend, and I claimed that I could make 3 separate 2,000-point lists of Eldar that had no overlap. I came close-ish. Colin wasn't as impressed with the list as I was. There's a lot of depth in what is good. But basically look for what are the killy things and what are the fast movie things. So how many Spiders and Shadow Specters versus how many vehicle chassis. So that was Shannon's list. Nathan Princhy brought Custodes, which are lists that I now look at much more carefully and understand. Blade Champion, Shield Captain, Alaris Captain, 9 Guardians, 5 Alaris, 2 Caladius, which are different than Calidus. So those are the tanks, not the Lady Assassin. 6 Wardens, an Eversur, and 2 5s of Exaction Squads. To Colin's point, for those who remember 8th edition, there was the Loyal 32, which were 32 guardsmen who just went around with every single Imperial army because it gave you 5 command points.
30 guardsmen and 2 of the most inexpensive characters because, yes, it gave you 5 CP and also gave you dumb people to stand on things.
Yeah, this is the new that. So someone come up with whatever the heck Exaction Squad's nickname is supposed to be, because you can just...
Oh, they're the cops. That's what everybody that I've played against calls them.
Yeah, that's boring.
I'm sorry.
The Loyal 32 is like a good resonant name. The Cops. We as a community can do better. Someone come up with something clever. I'm not that person.
Okay.
But yeah, just they're really good. Because a 35-point unit needs a 5-up Feel No Pain for no particular reason. Mm-hmm. And then finally, in 4th place, James Stewart. Favorite Jimmy Stewart movie? Colin?
Don't have one.
Really?
I don't think I've ever seen a Jimmy Stewart movie other than It's a Wonderful Life. Which I'm not a fan of.
Okay, well, you have no heart. Go watch.
It's a Wonderful Life is a fantastic movie for its time period. I don't think movies like that hold up like other people do. That's all.
Fair enough. Well, in that case, you might not enjoy Philadelphia Story, but for anyone who appreciates a timeless classic from the 30s, my favorite Jimmy Stewart movie.
You want to talk about doesn't hold up? The American Film Institute had Citizen Kane as the best movie for a long time. And that movie was groundbreaking when it came out. I have tried to watch it as a grown-up. I tried to watch it as a teenager, and it was terrible. I tried to watch it as a grown-up, and the pacing was so bad, I could barely make it. So sometimes it's the nostalgia of the time period. Sorry, guys, but the original Star Wars trilogy are really slow. Okay.
Yeah, art versus entertainment.
Exactly right.
But Zach the Bird was happy for my Jimmy Stewart reference, and so you know what? No,
I can't do a Jimmy Stewart. I tried. Thought I could maybe do it. Can you do a Jimmy Stewart?
No, okay. Not at 7:47 in the morning and 1 cup of coffee. Okay. Although Dana Carvey's Jimmy Stewart
is the best.
Yes, yeah. Absolutely.
All right.
James Stewart of Hobart, Australia fame with GSC ran basically the army Colin was talking about earlier, 25 demo charge acolytes, 60 neophytes, a spread of characters, 2 ridge runners. James brought 10 and 5 of aberrants, so it's that second 5 of aberrants that is substituted for about 20 neophytes. Worth knowing. Next we have event-wise the Arch City GT2 in Columbus, Ohio. This one was won by Alex Bridnicki with Custodes. Blade Champion, That guy makes you advance and charge. Shield Captain. That guy gives free strats. 6 and 3 of Alaris Terminators. 2 Caladius Tanks. 2 6s of Wardens. Those guys pick up a 4-up, feel no pain once a game, and really don't die. 5 Witch Seekers and a Calidus Assassin. So Alex had both a Caladius Tank and a Calidus Assassin, which is high on my list of most offensive overlap of names that GW puts out there. And Alex has not heard the good word of the Exaction Squads, and so has Witch Seekers instead. You mentioned you were interested in Grey Knights. David Timms has a list that David would love for you to see. Second place for
you don't know that. You don't know David's life. Maybe David doesn't like me. That could be possible.
No, everyone likes you, Colin.
Lots of people don't like me.
That's fair. They're wrong.
Okay.
Castle and Crone and Grandmaster, 5 Terminators, 2 5s of strikes. The reason I know David made this list for you, Colin, is that he has a Land Raider in it. And I know you have a deep and abiding love of Land Raiders.
Yeah, for those that don't know, I am playing Dark Angels right now, and I am requiring myself to take a Land Raider. So, sadly, I had about an hour where my brain had decided that 10 Deathwing Knights and their character could go in the Land Raider. I just decided. I don't know. Maybe it was just like materializing that out into the universe. Maybe it was just like wishful thinking, and my brain's like, no, we're going to give Colin an hour of this joy, and then we'll rain on his parade. So, anyways,
yeah. That said, the Land Raider is about as viable as it's ever been in my time playing.
I agree. It's the correct amount of durable, and it's the correct amount of shooty for its points.
Yeah, which kudos on them, because that is an iconic miniature that goes all the way back, and you will see them on tables. Finishing off, 2 5s as Interceptors, Nemesis Dread Knight, 10 Purifiers, a Calidus, and Voidsman. Again, because David prefers Voidsman over Exaction Squads, 5 extra points.
Also really cheap.
Yeah, for 40 points as opposed to 35. Basically, for Imperium players who can't figure out how to spend their last few points, that's what the Allies tab is for. No other faction gets that, but Imperium, you got some really nice selections in there. Austin Johnson, 3rd place with 1,000 Suns. Ahriman, Exalted Master. Magnus, 2 Sorcerers. 35 rubrics in 3 units of 10 and then a 5, 15 of which have Flamers. Mutalith Vortex Beast, which is really nasty now, which is another miniature that I'm glad is viable.
Yeah, it's a fantastic model that we haven't seen on the table until now.
Yeah, it's like one of my pet peeves is that Age of Sigmar gets all the cool models, but like none of the cool kids play it. Sorry, Age of Sigmar players. Mutalith Vortex Beast is like of that ilk. So huge fan. A Forge Fiend, and then 2 3s of Flamers and a Changeling. Changeling is a fun thing to put into your Chaos lists. Just a really nice utility piece. And then finally, 4th place, Steve Perello with Chaos Demons. Bellicor, Bloodthirster, Shalaxi. Here's something that I don't know if I talked about this last week, but a realization that I had. It just caused me to reevaluate many units in the game, and I want to share it with people. Lots of things get benefits for attacking characters. I thought that meant just when you had killed the bodyguard unit and were down.
Oh, no.
No. When a character joins a unit, the unit becomes a character for rules purposes in all of the things that care about keywords. So, like, for example, the mission where you have to have a character on an objective, it's not the one model. It's the unit that has a character in it. Or, for example, Shalaxi, who just gets to, like, be perfect against characters. It's a much broader spread of things. This is my realization of intricate rules interactions that took me a while to figure out, sharing it with all of you.
Yeah, we talked on Bested Faction about how the charging until you base is really frustrating. Yeah. However, if you have larger bases, Chuck talked about how Squig Hog Riders, you can actually charge a farther back guy and put him wide out on the edge, and then the other ones don't have the movement to get around him. Yeah. And so they have to fall in behind him, and you end up with this thing that's exactly the shape you want. And it's like stuff like that is stuff we have to learn about 10th edition. That will like in 8th edition, we had to learn how to hug. Like hugging needed to happen. And now here we are in 10th edition, hugging's not really as important anymore. COVID made hugging not as good. So anyways, okay, keep going.
Finishing up Steve's list. So Be'lakor, Bloodthirster, Shalaxi, 3 Nurglings, 10 Bloodletters, 6 Blood Crushers, which high on my list of favorite models in all of Games Workshop, 3 Flamers, and then a Knight Despoiler. So big bugs approach. Also no Eldar at the top of that, which is probably helped Steve's success. And then I've seen this, I believe it's RopeCon tournament in Helsinki, Finland. 44 players with WTC scoring. So
I'm going to require you to read all of these names.
I did type them out. These were some very, I believe, Finnish names because it is a collection of letters that don't make sense to a Romance language person such as myself. Etu Peltola.
I think that's great.
Yes?
Sure.
Yeah. Etu Peltola with Necrons. 2 Hexmarks, 2 Overlords, 2 Technomancers, a Catan, Reanimator, a Spider, 2 twos of Crypto Thralls, 3 Doomsday Arcs, 2 Locust Destroyers, and 20 Lichguard. So my comments from earlier about Crypto Thralls and Lichguard units being really obnoxious to chew through, E2 went mostly in on that, and to success. Second place, Carl Tukia? Depends if
Carly? Yeah, I don't know.
Carle Tukia. Brought Eldari. Carle woke up and chose violence. Wayleaper, 2 Farseers, 2 5s of Shadow Specters, 2 5s of Warp Spiders, and 3 Wraith Knights. Those games would end quickly.
That's very I'm not going to play Knights energy. That's what that is.
It's just, yeah, that's I want to sit down and hang out with my friends this weekend.
Yeah.
But to great success, second place.
Yeah, good job.
Yoha Otalin in third place with Eldar. Wayleaper Incarn, 3 Fire Prisms, 3 Hornets, 2 5s of Shadow Specters, 2 D Cannons, 3 Warwalkers, and 3 5s of Spiders. So Carle said, in my mind, Carle and Yoha are friends, and they have 3 Wraith Knights between them. And one of them said, I want to take all the Wraith Knights. And the other one said, I want to take all the not Wraith Knights. And they both were very successful.
Yeah, they both went 4-1 as a result.
Yes. And then finally, fourth place, Alexi Lehito. GSC, Clamavis, 2 Nexus, 2 Primus, 2 Reductress, 25 Echoes, 90 Neos, a Truck, a Ridge Runner, and 10 Aberrants.
This is how bad Gene Cult lists are. I'm excited that he has a truck.
What's the truck for, do you think?
It's for 10 of the it's for 10 of the neophytes often.
Okay.
It can be for 10 of the Echoes, but their bombs, they don't get their really good bomb strat unless they come in from D-Strike. And I think you can also put the 10 Aberrants in there. So there's some options.
Okay, that's interesting. We have a few minutes, and Space Marine Steve asks an interesting question of how do you kill the Lichguard bricks with the Crypto Thralls? I will give my less informed take, and then I'll let Colin talk because he's the better player. I think it's very dependent on what army you have. For example, with Custodes, as I'm now a Custodes player, I look at that and say, that's a unit of Toon models that has characters in it. Kaboom. Eldar, I think, similarly can just be like, that's a unit that D Cannons or Wraith Knight get to have blast into. Kaboom. Mm-hmm. If I were playing Marines, that would get Oathed and Desolation Marined, because the math on that is just kind of silly. I think it's super dependent on what army you're playing.
Yeah, if you have access to Mortal Wounds, that's kind of the best way to approach it,
mm-hmm.
In my experience. But also, bulk fire is actually quite good. Aberrants, if we're talking about how the broken armies deal with it, Aberrants are really good into them. It is a challenge. They are not okay. That's part of the problem is that the tier right behind S tier has some sketch in it. Yeah. Because the S tier is so bad that we're being distracted. Because if you listen to the tournament performances we just talked about, what we're saying is Eldar, something else, Eldar, mm-hmm. something else, Eldar, something else, Eldar.
Yeah.
So Eldar is a massive problem, but the thing that is being hidden from that is how bad Genestealer Cult is. I think Genestealer Cult is better than Eldar, but that's like kind of like a, you know,
Colin hot take.
Which
That's the sports radio. We need to talk about something in the morning. Colin says he is better than Eldar. And
I just tried really hard to come up with a metaphor for how that is for me, but it's a little bit like being the most civilized monkey in the zoo. You're still a monkey.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, they're both wildly broken, and which one's better doesn't actually matter. But the reason why you're seeing less Genestealer Cult than Eldar is you have to remember the number of people that play the armies. Genestealer Cult is an expensive hobby army, always has been. It requires a ton of models to play. They all have to be hobbied up. It's more complicated to play than things like Eldar. Like Eldar, you're playing like 40, 50 models. Like, it's not that big of a deal. So I believe that GSC's rules are actually better in the hands of a really talented player, like Nick Donavati at ATC, for example. So that's what we have for This Week in 40K this week. This Week in 40K this week is this week.
Yes.
Next week will be next week, but this week is this week.
Generally, that's how time works, but unless you're in the Jeremy Bearimy of it all and you get to the dot at the top of the eye.
I saw the time knife. And with that, we're done for this week. He's Billy and I'm Colin because someone has to be, and we'll be back next Tuesday, just like we always are. We love it when you join us live. We love it when you leave comments, and we love it when you tell other people about us. Thank you, everybody, and have a fantastic Tuesday, and we'll be back next week.
Bye.